This is a brave night to cool a courtesan. I'll speak a prophecy ere I go. When priests are more in word than matter, when brewers mar their malt with water, when nobles are their tailors' tutors, no heretics burned, but wenches' suitors, then shall the realm of Albion come to great confusion. When every case in law is right, no squire in debt, nor no poor knight. When slanderers do not live in tongues, nor cut purses come not to throngs. When usurers tell their gold in the field, and bards and whores do churches build, then comes a time who lives to see it, that going shall be used with feet. Welcome to Positive Readings. That was The Fool from Shakespeare's King Lear. And his prophecy is describing a world where everything is not as it appears. The priest who should be honorable is honorable and moral only in word. The king who should be leading the way is no longer the king. In the words of the fool, he's turned his daughters into mothers, and they have scolded him and kicked him out. So madness is here, and for King Lear, madness brings great wisdom, as we will see as we look deeper into this play. Before we do, however, let me just mention my own attempt at madness and wisdom. So if you're interested, please look into the description and find the link for this novel. Thank you. King Lear has often been called Shakespeare's greatest play. It came at the height of his powers, near the end of his life in around 1606. Shakespearean critics like Harold Bloom hails it as Shakespeare's greatest accomplishment. He cautions, though, that we read it without ideological renderings, and to do so would be to defraud ourselves. So we're going to try to avoid that and just look at a few elements that I think are quite important in this play. King Lear is a bleak play, so bleak that for hundreds of years after it was originally written and performed, the ending was actually changed. So it did not end on such a pessimistic, miserable ending with both Lear and his beloved Cordelia dying, but instead the two lived on. An interest in this play renewed, especially with World War I and seeing the madness that society was able to realize. The storyline of King Lear is fairly simple. It focuses on two fathers, one who's a king, King Lear, the other an earl, Gloucester. And both fathers have been betrayed by their offspring. In the case of King Lear, he's decided in his old age to split his kingdom up. He asks, in kind of a ridiculous fashion, he asks the daughters to profess their love for him. The two false daughters can readily do this and say all kinds of things about how much they love their father. Cordelia, the youngest, who King Lear loves the most, tells him, basically she can't. She loves him as much as her duty to him requires. And she's not going to go along with the pageantry of just, saying, "Oh, I love you," or how much she loves him, when that's false words. She's about to get married, so she knows that some of her love has to go to her husband. And this is really what she's thinking about here. Lear overreacts, tells her she's banished. He banishes his loyal servant, Kent. And from there, he descends into madness. Eventually, both daughters, the false daughters, kicking him out. And he's out in the storm for much of this play. And in his madness, he sees the truth, the reality of which daughter was good, and There's some comments about the actual role of a king and being in authority and the shallowness of that. So there's a comment about that as well in this play, about being a leader. The story of Gloucester, the second storyline, he has a legitimate son and a bastard son. The bastard son is Edmund. Edmund has no rights in this society because he is a bastard, so he decides to trick both his brother, his half-brother, and his father in order to get ahead. And of course, eventually this leads to tragedy for all three. Much is made about the storm scene in this play. There's a long stretch starting at Act 3, where Lear is out in the elements, slowly losing his clothes. And it's out in the storm that we start to see Lear turning his rage not so much at his daughters anymore, but at humanity itself and the human condition, being a father and producing daughters that lack gratitude. Blow winds and crack your cheeks, rage blow. You cataracts and hurricanos spout, till you have drenched our steeples, drowned the cocks. You sulphurous in thought executing fires, vaunt couriers of oak-cleaving thunderbolts, singe my white hair, and thou all shaken thunder, strike flat the thick rotundity of the world, crack nature's molds, all Germans spill at once, that makes ingrateful man. The word Germans here is lowercase g, not talking about the country or the people, but actual sperm, the reproductive goo, if you will, and how that he's imagining this storm actually destroying the entire world, right at the core of the reproduction of people, and that's how false and awful Lear sees the world in this moment. This same theme is continued by Lear in the next scene, so Act 3, Scene 4, now with Kent as witness, and this is what Lear says. Thou thinkest 'tis much that this contentious storm invades us to the skin, so 'tis to thee. But where the greater malady is fixed, the lesser is scarce felt. So Kent thinks the storm is invading them to the skin, but for Lear, he's saying that, well, his greater malady, what's going on in his mind because of what his daughters have done to him, that makes this storm almost nothing, right? It's lesser is scarce felt, because the storm is less than what's going on inside him. Thou'st shun a bear, but if thy flight lay toward the roaring sea, thou'st meet the bear in the mouth. And when the mind's free, the body is delicate. This tempest in my mind doth from my senses take all feeling else, save what beats there. Filial ingratitude. Is it not as this mouth should tear this hand for lifting food to it? But I will punish home. No, I will weep no more. In such a night to shut me out. Pour on, I will endure. So filial ingratitude that's the tempest in Lear's mind, and he compares it to biting at his own hand as he's lifting food to it. Lear starts to see that even though his daughters are awful, he has produced them, so he has a role in this, and this is what makes him turn towards humanity itself as being the problem, and not just society, but the human project itself, and that's really part of the bleakness of this play and the pessimism at its core. Connecting to Lear's sense of evilness being kind of a driving principle within humanity, there's a sense that fate plays a role in this play. This comes out earlier with Edmund, again, who's part of this second kind of parallel storyline. Gloucester and Lear are both experiencing the same thing. They're experiencing children turning against them. And almost in the same way that we get the star-crossed lovers of Romeo and Juliet who are destined to their marriages to be miscarried and to lead to tragedy, we get this demented version of that star-crossed lovers where Gloucester and Lear are destined for this tragedy that they're experiencing, and Edmund is speaking against this. So this comes in Act 1, Scene 2, right after Edmund has tricked his father Gloucester. Gloucester comments on the fact that it's the moon, it's the stars that are leading to all these bad things. There's all these prophecies of, similar to the fool's prophecy that I read at the beginning here, that there's bad times right now. And Edmund responds to that. He finds this silly. However, by the end of the play, he dies, and all this stuff does come to pass, and perhaps his naysaying on this was incorrect. So this is Edmund on destiny. This is the excellent foppery of the world, that when we are sick in fortune, often the surfeits of our own behavior, we make guilty of our disasters the sun, the moon, and stars, as if we were villains on necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, knaves, thieves, and treacherers by spherical predominance, drunkards, liars, and adulterers by an enforced obedience of planetary influence. So when we become sick because we've gorged, we've had too much, we've pursued our pleasures and desires too much, and this has kind of made us ill in some way, we blame the stars. We blame that something's out of our control. That's why he calls it disasters, the sun, the moon, the stars, as if we're villains on necessity, as if we don't have control. So Edmund very much feels like he is in control here, and that's why he's trying to take his destiny in his hands here. But of course, it doesn't turn out that way for him. He continues, and all that we are evil in by a divine thrusting on, an admirable evasion of whoremaster man, to lay his goatis disposition to the charge of a star. Right? So that is a reference to his father directly. His father had an affair. Edmund's the product of that. He calls that the goatish disposition, a goat, like Pan, or one of these wood sprites who is looking around, always kind of sexualizing things. His father is like that, produced him, but he blames it on a star. So as Edmund is trying to change his destiny, Gloucester and Lear are coming to the realization that they are caught within their destiny, and their destiny is tragic, but within that tragedy, they see the reality of their life in the world and what's going on. So after Gloucester had his eyes scooped out, he goes out into this storm. He wants his son, his real son, even though he does not know he is his real son, Edgar, who's in disguise. He wants him to bring him to Dover, where he can commit suicide. And this is a very interesting scene. It's absurd. It's comedy, black comedy. It almost feels like it doesn't belong in here. It's so ridiculous. Gloucester says, "Let go my hand. Here, friend, 's another purse. In it a jewel, well worth a poor man's taken. Fairies and gods prosper it with thee. Go thou further off, bid me farewell, and let me hear thee go." Right. So Gloucester's trying to get rid of his son. Again, he doesn't know it's his son. He thinks it's just this kind of poor beggar. Here's something for you. Now go off. I'm going to kill myself. Edgar says, "Now fare ye well, good sir." Gloucester, "With all my heart." Edgar aside, talking to the audience, he says, "Why do I trifle thus with his despair? Is done to cure it." So he's explaining to the audience here that I'm going to let him think he's about to kill himself because I'm hoping to cure his despair through this. And again, this ties into this idea of destiny. Do we control our fate or do we not? Gloucester thinks he could here by trying to kill himself, and when that fails, he thinks that failure is part of his destiny, that now he needs to live. So in this way, Gloucester is very much, the way he's looking at the world here correlates to how he was looking at it previously, that fate is ruling him. Kneeling down, Gloucester says, "O you mighty gods, this world I do renounce, and in your sights shake patiently my great affliction off. If I could bear it longer and not fall to quarrel with your great opposeless wills, my snuff and loathed part of nature should burn itself out. If Edgar live, oh bless him. Now, fellow, fare thee well." So if he could continue to deal with this tragedy that he has, as he says here, to quarrel with your great opposeless will, my snuff and loathed part of nature should burn itself out. That should be no more, but he can't handle it. He needs to try to kill himself. Edgar says, "Gone, sir, farewell." At this point, Gloucester throws himself. Remember, he thinks he's at the cliff, but he is not. This can be done in several ways. In a fairly recent performance, I've seen Gloucester kind of falls back and Edgar kind of falls under him, where he kind of feels like he's fallen. Gloucester does. So after Gloucester has fallen on the ground, Edgar says, "And yet I know not how conceit may rob the treasury of life when life itself yields to the theft. Had he been where he thought, by this had thought been past, alive or dead." Here Edgar is speculating that perhaps imagination could cause death. If he really thought that he was fallen, that maybe he would die here, kind of like the nocebo effect. That doesn't happen though. Gloucester's still alive, and eventually Edgar talks him back into realizing that his life is essentially a miracle that he's alive. Shortly after this bizarre simulation of suicide, Lear comes along. He has these flowers with him. He's handing them out. He's kind of gone full madness at this point. And he recognizes Gloucester, and he's trying to speak to Gloucester about, why he has been condemned. He sees that he's lost his eyes, even though he doesn't seem to understand that occasionally. And this is Lear's speech to him. "Aye, every inch a king." This is Gloucester's questioning. "Are you not the king? Every inch a king. When I do stare, see how the subject quakes. I pardon that man's life. What was thy cause? Adultery? Thou shalt not die. Die for adultery? No. The wren goes to it. The small gilded fly does lecher in my sight. Let copulation thrive, for Gloucester's bastard son was kinder to his father than my daughters got between the lawful sheets." So at this point, Lear is almost celebrating, like, yes, we shouldn't be punished for adultery. Let that happen, right? Because Gloucester's son, his bastard son, was better than my own daughters, right? Got between the lawful sheets. Lear obviously doesn't know that Edmund is corrupt, and actually that's not the case. He hasn't been good to his father. "To it luxury pell-mell, for I lack soldiers," right? Go on and copulate, because I need more soldiers. Remember, his daughters took them all from him. "Behold yon simpering dam, whose face between her forks presage snow," the forks being her legs, "that minces virtue and does shake the head, to hear of pleasure's name. The fit shoe, nor the soiled horse, goes to it, with a more riotous appetite. The Fitchu would be the polecat, the ferret, which is another term for a prostitute. So this whole line here at the beginning is talking about all the people who go to it, who commit these acts of passion, and that you shouldn't be punished for. Down from the waist they are centaurs, though women all above. But to the girdle do the gods inherit. Beneath is all the fiends. There's hell, there's darkness. There is the sulphurous pit, burning, scolding, stench, consumption, fee, pa. Give me an ounce of civet, good apothecary. Sweeten my imagination. There's money for thee. And then he gives a flower to him. Gloucester responds, oh, let me kiss that hand. And then Lear says, let me wipe it first. It smells of mortality. So throughout this, on one hand, this sounds like just an old man kind of raving about sex and all the different forms it might take in society. But on the other hand, Lear is describing this creation that in his madness he wanted to destroy. And he's talking about how it just kind of goes on, it continues on. And to clarify this point a little more, a little further down, Gloucester says, Lear says to read, Gloucester says, what? With the case of eyes? Lear, oh ho, are you there with me? No eyes in your head, nor no money in your purse. Your eyes are in a heavy case, your purse in a light. Yet you see how the world goes, which he was just describing how the world goes. Gloucester says, I see it feelingly, right? He feels how it goes. He's feeling horrible because of how he wronged his son and the penalty that he paid for it. Lear says, what, art mad? A man may see how this world goes with no eyes. Look with thine ears. See how you justice rails upon yon simple thief. Hark in thine ears. Change places and handy-dandy. Which is the justice? Which is the thief? Thou hast seen a farmer's dog bark at a beggar? Aye, sir, says Gloucester, and then Lear. And the creature run from the cur? There thou mightest behold the great image of authority, a dog's obeyed in office. And here again, this would be Lear, again, condemning this kind of false society that the image of authority is a dog being obeyed in office, meaning whoever's in office, the people are going to obey. They didn't actually deserve to be there. They're there, just in name alone. And this is, again, the great image of authority. So quite subversive in the message that Lear is trying to put out, that society is fundamentally defective. It has these problems in it, and yet it keeps perpetuating, and yet we are all part of it. We're all stuck in it, in playing some part. Lear continues with there's a longer speech here, which I'm going to skip over, but Edgar's response to this is reason in madness, right? He sees that in Lear's madness, he is actually seeing the world as it is. Gloucester, we already know, now that he's lost his eyes, he can see the real predicament that he was in. He could see how he was duped. So he can see now that he's lost his eyes. And this is essentially, I think, one of the main themes in this play, that to a certain extent we are living in madness and we don't see what's going on. That's our sanity. But by being driven to madness, we now see the world as it really is. And it can be a horror. And the fact that it can be horrifying and ghastly, that's why this play does not end with any kind of hope, any kind of positive message besides the fact that we must just kind of suffer through, go through our trials in life and try to come out on the other end as complete, as fit as we can. There are many other passages I could look at in this play, So much of it is quite dense, funny, philosophical, enlightening about the human condition. It's definitely a play worth reading over and over again. But that's only a little bit here that I can look at. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching.